Funding for music is provided by the United States Department of Health, Education and Welfare, Office of Education, and Allied Chemical Corporation.
Goodbye, my Coney Island baby. Farewell, my own true love, true love. Oh, goodbye, my Coney Island baby. Farewell, my own true love, true love.
Harmony. What's it all about? Simple. It's 2 notes, or 3 notes, or 4 notes, or 57 notes played together. But always at least 2 different notes. Now, if there are only 2 notes, especially if they're up high, you hear kind of a thin sound. Obviously, the more notes you add, and the lower they are, the thicker the sound gets.
Put on your old gray bonnet with a blue ribbon on it, while I hitch old love into the shade. Through the fields of clover we'll ride on to Dover on our golden
But how do we choose combinations of notes to make harmonies? Well, it really depends on the kind of sound you want. For example, when you combine different foods, you get different flavors, don't you? Well, it's the same idea in music. Each combination of notes has a different sound. Look, if you were deciding what to eat for lunch, you might choose peanut butter and jelly, or you might choose ratatouille, which is a French vegetable dish that has a lot of eggplant and green peppers and garlic and onions. Well, does the thought of eating all that make you feel uncomfortable? Well, the sound of certain harmonies might make you feel uncomfortable too. May make you sit up, surprise you. You see, combinations of sounds that we're not used to may seem a little shocking at first, but it's these different combinations of sound that make music interesting. Different ways of grouping notes into what we call chords. But while playing 2 or 3 notes together might make a chord doesn't make music. But how several chords, several combinations are used, that's what makes music. The game of baseball, like any sport, has certain rules. The batter starts out at home plate, goes to first, second, third, then, if he's lucky, back to home plate. Well, harmony is a little like that, too. The groups of notes travel in what we call a progression. Let me show you what I mean. You see, each chord is built over a note of the scale. The first note of the scale, for example. Play a note, then skip one, play another, then skip one and play another. Or the fourth note of the scale, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Play that one, skip the next and play one, skip the next and play one. Or we can build a chord on the fifth note of the scale, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Play the first one, skip one, play the next one, skip one and play the next one. And that's why this is called the 1, 4, 5 progression. And it's just what the word says. The chords make progress until they get where they are going, which is exactly where they started out, home plate. Now, if I only played this much, now that would be the difference between being left on third base at the end of the inning or being brought home. Now, a lot of pop music, a lot of folk tunes, a lot of music which you hear all the time uses just these 3 chords. 1, 4, 5, 1. As I was out walking one morning for pleasure, I spied a cowpuncher a-riding alone. His hat was thrown back and his spurs was a-jingling, and as he approached, he was a-singing this song. Oh-up-a-tie-I-oh.
Way down upon the Swanee River, far, far away, there's where my heart is turning ever. There's where the old folks stay.
Oh, the Rock Island Line is a mighty good road. The Rock Island Line is a road to ride. The Rock Island Line is a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, try to ride it like you fight it. Get your ticket at the station on the Rock Island Line.
In many places in the Far East, in places like China, Japan, Korea, music sounds quite different than it might in America. After all, the people live their lives quite differently than we do, and their music reflects this. Now, many of their instruments have been used for thousands of years, And these instruments can produce notes that many of the instruments we have in America just can't play. Imagine playing two notes on the piano that are right next to each other. Now, in most of the music we hear, that's about as close as sounds get. But now imagine if you could choose to play all the tones in between the two notes on the piano, tones that are so close together that we can hardly tell them apart. Well, a lot of Asian music is formed just this way. Asian music has its unique sound because of the closeness of the notes. But in other parts of the world, composers look for ways to spread out that sound in order to make harmony lighter. This music is still based on chords and progressions, but the notes of the chords are not struck at the same time. Instead, they are played one after another in a broken chord style. Harmony can enrich the melody played by a solo instrument. This bluegrass fiddler creates harmony by bowing over several strings at once in the same way that a pianist strikes several notes at the same time. And of course, harmony is created when many voices join together, singing many different notes at the same time.
Help him out the door. Help him out, help him out, help him out the door. Don't let a crowd and sinner go under. Walk him up the stairs. You scared the devil, Lord, shake your thunder. Walk him up the stairs. Walk him up, walk him up, walk him up the stairs.
harmony is not made up only of chords all the time. Harmony can be made up of melodies. 2, 3, 4, or 5 different melodies all going on at the same time. Now, look here at this score. Now, even if you can't read music, you can see lines of melody going across the page. But when we hear them, they are all playing at the same time. So we could draw a line down the page and find a chord made up of 5 notes at any point in the music. But that really wouldn't explain this harmony, because this composer didn't think in chords. This composer thought in melodies, and each melody working with other melodies. This is what we call counterpoint. Now, you hear a kind of a counterpoint when you sing rounds, such as Frere Jacques, or Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Well, let's hear some of this busy 5-part counterpoint. I'm going to ask the first violins to play their melody out loudly, and all the other melodies to be soft for a while. Let's see what the first violin melody sounds like. Thank you very much. Now let's ask the second violins to play their melody out loud, and ask the first violins to be quiet along with everybody else. And let's see what melody is in the second violins. Good. Now here's a third musical idea in the violas. Now, granted, this tune is not very interesting, but it's still important to the whole piece of music. Thank you. Now, let's listen to our low string instruments, the cellos and the basses, for yet another musical idea while everyone else plays quietly. Here is still a fifth musical idea in our trumpets. Okay, now let's listen to all 5 musical ideas going on at the same time, all equally loud and all equally important. You see, that's how it works together in this fugue by Bach. First, you will hear melodies coming in one by one. The first violins, then the seconds, then the violas and the cellos and basses, adding a new layer of sound each time, until the whole music is complete with counterpoint. Now, the Great Gate of Kiev from Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition, orchestrated by Ravel, is a work for orchestra that is made up almost entirely of chords, and the melody of the Great Gate is always on the top, above those chords. Now, you'll hear continuous progressions of chords moving one to the other. In fact, the music opens with majestic-sounding chord progressions in the brasses as they seem to bring us up to the Great Gate. But as we pass through and the city of Kiev stands before us, the harmony becomes richer and thicker as the whole orchestra explodes with sound.
Funding for music was provided by the United States Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, Office of Education, and Allied Chemical Corporation.